This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome and thank you for participating in the Florida Broadband Workshop today. These workshops are being hosted by the Department of Economic Opportunity in partnership with the Florida Regional Planning Councils. My name is Katie Smith. I am the Director for the Office of Community Partnerships and the Florida Office of Broadband at the Department of Economic Opportunity. And I will be your host today, along with my colleague, Sean Lewis, who is a Community Program Manager with the Office of Community Partnerships at DEO. I want to thank our partners and friends at the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council for facilitating today and assisting DEO with the invitations, assisting us with the technical assistance during the workshops, and collecting the information and comments to be included in the Florida Strategic Plan for Broadband. All of these comments that we gather today are important for expanding the broadband internet access in your region. It's really important that you're here. So again, I am the Katie Smith, the Director for the Office of Broadband, and I have been with DEO for the last 6 years. I have been and worked in various divisions throughout the agency, in strategic business development with large companies relocating and expanding to Florida. And I've worked in the Division of Community Development, working with small and rural communities with their economic development. Most recently, we began the Office of Broadband, establishing that less than a year ago. So today, we're going to start the conversation on broadband, focusing on accessibility, what the current status of broadband internet is in your region, for your community sector, for your industry sector, and how you define broadband expansion. You're identified as a leader in your industry sector, and I'm really looking forward to your discussion and comments today. Next slide, please. Stephanie, oh, there we go. So during the 2020 legislative session, House Bill 969 established the Florida Office of Broadband at DEO to increase the availability and effectiveness of broadband internet throughout the state, especially in small and rural communities. And the bill also authorized DEO to access federal grant dollars to assist communities with expansion in broadband services. The office is currently staffed by existing resources in our Office of Community Partnerships at DEO. And the Office of Broadband has been very fortunate to have the support and the commitment of fantastic partner organizations, such as the Regional Planning Councils, the Florida Association of Counties, the Small Counties Coalition, Florida Internet and Television state agencies, such as the Department of Transportation, the Department of Education, the Department of Health, and many, many others. Next slide, please. So per section 364.0135 Florida Statutes, the office has been provided 4 main directives. These include creating a strategic plan to increase the use of broadband service in Florida, building and facilitating local technology planning teams, which is exactly what we are doing here today, encouraging the use of internet services through broadband grant programs, and also monitoring the FCC proceedings and participating in those proceedings as needed. Next slide, please. So to meet the directives of this statute, DEO adopted a phased approach. The first phase is a feasibility study to specify the nature of the connectivity gap and why it exists. In 2020, we submitted an application to the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration with a request for $3 million to fund the study. And we were notified in the fall of 2020 that we were not awarded funding. However, with the help from our partners, the office has requested broadband studies and plans and projects that are being completed or have already been completed throughout the regional, county, and community levels to assist in identifying what the current status of broadband is. And all of this information will be added and included into the strategic plan for broadband. The second phase of this approach is the strategic plan itself and that expansion of broadband statewide. So the office has begun outlining that plan, and it's looking forward to aggregating all of this information that we gather today during these workshops and also via our DEO website. So that website is floridajobs.org/broadband, and we will eventually, just being not today, I don't have that quite up yet, but we will have a survey out on that website so that we can gather more public input for that information. And so one of the things that we are also doing as part of that strategic planning process in that phase 2 is the technology planning teams that were mentioned in statute. That's exactly why we're here today. So it tells us that we will need to speak with industry sector leaders. And so we are taking all of the information gathered from our workshops over the next few weeks, and that is from those industry sector leaders, and providing that vital information and conversation into the plan. The implementation is phase 3, and upon completion of the plan, we're looking forward to identifying other external resources and internal as well that will assist us in implementation of that plan. Next slide, please. The Office of Broadband created a website that houses information on federal and state funding opportunities for broadband. We regularly update the site. We include information on the workshops, and very soon, as I said on the previous slide, we will be taking a survey, adding a survey link for public input on broadband expansion. One recent development you may have heard about with federal funding is the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, which is the RDOF, and that's through the FCC. That was $191 million that was awarded to Florida entities. The FCC has provided information and a summary of that auction on their website by county, and those bidders in that county that were awarded funding. That link is also on our website if you would like to access it. The one thing I do want to note, though, is that DEO does not have a role in determining who gets the funding or how those funds are utilized and what that phased approach for those awardees looks like. Next slide, please. So to prepare for possible grant funding that may occur in the future through DEO, it's listed in statute that there are certain priorities for project proposals, and they're highlighted here that we need to highlight projects that remove barriers for entry to underserved areas. We need to look at projects that are encouraging local and regional investment and that address the needs which have been exposed during the pandemic, such as remote working, distance learning, and telemedicine. And finally, the Office of Broadband is continuously monitoring broadband development activity, and we participate in National Association discussions on a weekly basis. Next slide, please. You will also find on the Florida Broadband website this map, and it highlights internet speeds by census block. The state of Florida minimum internet download speeds map, yes, very long name, uses FCC data. And since January of 2015, the FCC has defined broadband internet as download speeds greater than 25 megabits per second and upload speeds of 3 megabits per second. We chose to present the FCC data a little differently because one of our office goals is to focus on the underserved and unserved. We chose to highlight the census blocks with minimum internet download speed, meaning that 25.3 or less. And the data on the map is provided by the FCC from June of 2019, so it's relatively recent. The new census counts and data will eventually be uploaded to our site, so we'll be able to upload our map accordingly. The data is for fixed internet service only. Satellite and mobile data are not included. And I encourage you to log on and check out the website. We do have those, it is color coded, so you will see what is 25.3 and higher, and you will also see what is below that threshold. Next slide, please. So back to today. So today's workshop is the first broadband workshop being conducted in partnership with the Florida Regional Councils Association. And the 10 regional workshops are being hosted by DEO and facilitated by those regional planning councils. All workshops will be completed by February 12th. The workshop participants include a variety of industry sector leaders from education, healthcare, local government, etc. You'll see those listed here on the slide. I believe we had 13 different industry sectors that we are requesting those comments and discussions from each region. And after all of those workshops are completed, the Florida Regional Councils Association will aggregate this information and the testimonies from the workshop participants, provide it to DEO, and by February the 15th. So at this point, I appreciate your attention so far, and I'd like to turn it over to Stephanie with the Treasure Coast RPC for some information and instruction on the next portion of the workshop.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. In the next part of this workshop, what we're going to do is we're going to be doing some interactive polling. We poll everywhere. If you look in the chat box, I sent some links so that you can just do it in a different, I would open a different window in the computer so that you can follow along with the polling and then also see the polling results through the webinar at the same time. Or you can text, do it through text. You would just follow the instructions that are on the screen now, and then I also put the text in the chat box so that you can just click on those. So this is going to help us collect the information for DEO and aggregate that information back to them after all 10 workshops are completed. So questions, staff will notify you when it's time to submit your response, or once the question is up on the screen, you can go ahead and submit the response, and then we'll kind of wait. We'll give you some time, and we'll give you a countdown also so that you can know when we're going to close that particular question. So one thing to keep in mind is that each of these questions has a list of corresponding alphabetical letters for the answers. So all you're going to do is enter in, if you're texting, all you'll do is enter in that alphabetical letter A through B, C, and so on. Don't type in the letter. So let's see. So let's go to the next.
Stephanie, I hate to interrupt. It's very hard to hear you.
Get that one. Okay.
There, can you hear me?
Yes. It's much.
Get closer. Okay, so. Okay, so once again, I'll stay in the, oh yes, better. Thank you, Karma. So you just try clicking on the link. Don't copy and paste it, just try clicking on it. That was sent. Or you can just go to what is on the slide that says pollev.com/goldleaf599, and that will get you into the software. Just give everybody a second to do that. If you have any questions, you can just unmute yourself and ask.
Stephanie, it doesn't look, it's waiting on
I'm sorry.
to begin.
Yeah, everybody's chatting right now, but let's go ahead and we'll get started on the first one.
We can't get in, Stephanie. Oh, here we go.
Okay, so For those of you that are in, go ahead and you can see it's working. And you should be able to see the percentages on the screen there of, as people are responding. Can you see how are responding? Chocolate's the favorite here. Okay. Let's go ahead and we'll just do the countdown to end this. We'll do it. We'll shut it off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So now we're getting into this. I'll let Katie, if you want to talk to each slide, what is the information that you're looking for, and then we'll let everybody But well, this one is kind of a bio data one, so everybody should be able to answer this one without too much instruction from Katie.
Yeah, so these are so we have 8 questions that we want some feedback on. So this is the first question. I love that everybody's jumping in here, but we're really looking in these 8 next questions to really kind of identify how we can get your feedback so that we can it will assist us in the design of these programs and help us get a better understanding of broadband accessibility and how what that definition looks like. So if everyone has submitted their answer, we are just curious what sectors are represented here today. I appreciate, by the way, all of the service providers that are present. Thank you so much for participating.
Okay. I can put this one more. Okay.
Okay, so it looks like we've got that now. The next question here is, which county is your place of business or your organization what most significantly in? This helps us better idea of that regional perspective.
I don't know. She is.
And you may be in multiple counties, so that's okay too.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close this one in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Great. So the next question in this small series is, are you aware of any existing local broadband studies or plans for your area? Okay.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close this one in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Our fourth question is, of those following factors, or these following factors here, cost, speed, reliability, provider, or technology, which is most important regarding broadband internet accessibility for your industry? And we're just trying to get an idea of if there is a difference or a correlation. What does that look like? And I know that a lot of these are very high. We are definitely, high level questions. We are doing that intentionally. We're trying to make sure that we have a good starting point and we understand what's out there and what's currently out there. What does the structure look like?
On these, Katie, do you want to take any questions as we go along, or do you want to wait till the end as you ask the questions?
I think probably the next 1 or 2 will definitely need to have some questions, but I would encourage anyone to comment or if they have questions about it, or I'm open, absolutely.
Okay, it looks like we have a comment from Mike Merker that need availability as a choice.
We need availability. Okay. Okay, and I think that's a good comment, because that's one of the things that we are trying to identify as what is that? What does that look like? So that's a good one. I will keep that in mind for our next one. Thank you.
Let me just ask Mr. Merker also, when you say availability, do you mean available like it's available and it's accessible, or which way? That it's physically available or financially available?
Well, maybe both.
Physically.
Physically is what I'm thinking. Is that right, Mike? Okay.
Keep it physically. Okay, ready for the next question?
Sure.
Okay.
So next here is, what type of internet technology listed below does your industry sector currently utilize through its internet service provider? I have a feeling that this may be a little bit more varied when we open it up to a more public facing survey, but it is, I am interested in the industry here as well. I'm curious if that is going to vary for our small and rural communities versus those industry sectors that are more heavily residing in urban areas. That's kind of the background on why we're asking this question.
What is cable?
And Katie, which of these responses would cable fall under?
Brad, I have you here in the audience here, and Brad Swanson is with our Florida Internet and Television Association, and I am curious what his thoughts on that would be.
Sure. So there's two definitions. Our member networks, which are your Comcast and Charter Spectrums and Coxes, they call it a fiber coaxial network. So it's fiber to the nodes, and it's typically a fiber / coaxial feed to the individual homes. So when typically the industry refers to fiber networks, it is of late defined as fiber plugged into the home, but most cable providers, and I mean like 99% of them, use a fiber node, and then it's a coaxial connection to the home. So if these were your only choices and you've got a cable provider, a traditional cable provider, I would click fiber because that is the underpinnings of the entire network.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very important piece of that data.
Okay, so I hope that provides a little bit more clarification. It's like I told Brad just the other day, I learn something every single time I talk to him. So today is no exception. All right, Stephanie, I think we may be ready to move to the next one. So internet technology listed below would increase internet availability for those that you serve. So the thought with this one is looking into the future. What would be easier for you? What do you think would help more of your industry have access and gain that access? One of these things that this stems from is as our office has been speaking with other states on some of their best practices, it came to my attention specifically, I believe it was Illinois. And if you've heard me talk before, you've heard me talk about Illinois. And they specifically made it expanded wireless hotspots throughout their rural communities. And so each community has a certain number of hotspots that will help provide more accessibility to the internet. Now, and that's kind of where this question comes from, is there a technology that would help us as a state get there to build that access? it is a very broad question. There's a lot of variables that go into trying to answer that. I'm curious if there's any comments from any of our industry leaders that on what you see for your sector and maybe what you would find helpful. Y'all are a really quiet group today.
Are you asking for us to respond now, Katie?
Verbally, sure.
Okay. Well, as we've seen in some of the rural markets test cases, our member company's product has not been the best technology to solve that ultra rural question. Hardy County's had really good success with point-to-point wireless services, as well as Senator Albritton will tell the story of getting one of those setups at his farm, and he's having great speeds. So our industry is committed definitely to the multiples of technologies that it's gonna take to solve connecting that last 5%. And as I like to say on every call, we just want to remind everybody that 95% of Floridians have access to a high-speed broadband connection. So we're talking about connecting the last 5% of Florida's population. Thank you, Katie.
Sure. Is there anyone else? Okay. Well, Stephanie.
Going on to the next question.
Okay. So this second to last question, we're almost done. Is identify the greatest challenge or barrier concerning broadband internet faced by your community. Again, I think this question will come in with a little bit more variance with when we put it on our website or public comment, but I am curious what that looks like from an industry perspective. Does anyone have any thoughts on that they would like to share? Okay.
Okay, so we'll close it down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, so my final question is simply, would you like to opt in to future communication from the Office of Broadband? And I'm not sure 100% what that looks like yet, but we will definitely keep you posted on what is happening in the future and with our strategic plan. At this point, I really would like to take any questions that you have or comments. I really am interested in hearing from the industry, anything related to broadband at this point. I know that I've asked my questions, so I'm curious what your questions are.
This is Mark Matt.
I'm sorry, anyone?
I was going to jump in, Mark Mathis, City Manager, City of Fellsmere. It's not so much a question, more a comment. We have a good internet service in our town because we have a hub for AT&T, so they provide good service via their lines in the ground. But just outside the city, we have vast amounts of rural ag land, farmettes, and many of them want to create businesses, but there's nobody who wants to go out in the rural area and provide service. So we're kind of in a dual situation where part of our town has great service and part of our town has virtually no service, and we can't attract the large players to jump into the rural areas because apparently they're just not interested.
I do understand that. I have heard that a couple times from other communities, and I know that some of the variables, that there's a lot of variables for that. I'm not sure that I can answer that or provide a good response to that now. Maybe Brad could, maybe Brad has a comment on that or a thought, but I know that from our perspective, we're looking at hopefully trying to get some funding to help with resources for those communities, such as yours, to open up, do a grant of some kind to assist you with an issue just like that.
Well, I appreciate that, and I know that we're actively looking ourselves for that. But one of the problems that we seem to come up with is who's going to be the provider. I mean, the city really doesn't want to get in the business. So if we can't bring a third-party private provider to the table to take advantage of this grant money that we might be able to bring down, grant money doesn't do much for us. So we're having a hard time getting the providers because, again, we don't want to be in the business of providing broadband, but it seems like that maybe we're forced to do that to make it happen.
I hear you. But I'm sorry, go ahead, Brad.
No, I was just gonna add to the conversation. I think when we look at solving Mike's challenge is you look at a couple of things. One, when you get to that, there's a reason that the free market and the private sector providers provide in town, obviously because you have the density to support it. And there's a reason that various companies don't sell to those or don't build out those networks to those rural environments. And there's a couple things that folks, we would love to have folks kind of walking around with their kind of hip knowledge or back pocket knowledge is some of the greatest costs to connect for these companies is for example, Florida has the 9th highest communication services tax in the state, and Floridians bear that cost. And so when you look at tax structures and you look at the cost to deploy networks, our members spend a boatload of money and then they have to pay a sales tax on new equipment when they're considering it. Florida could definitely benefit from looking at our cost to connect to poles, which is extremely high when they're provided by munis and co-ops, the sales tax structures that we have on our member companies. So Florida looks at some of these bigger challenges that we have on how private sector industry, it would be more cost effective for Florida, for these companies to invest in Florida. It's things like that we have to look at that can change the math to a degree. So then when you get these federal dollars coming down, that further changes the math. And, frankly, there's literally phone books worth of studies that show the costly and oftentimes very negative challenges when municipalities try and get in the business, because the cost isn't in the capex of building it, the cost is in maintaining it. And that's where cities like Dunellen really had crazy challenges, and they end up selling it to these systems to the private sector for pennies on the dollar, and it's the taxpayers in each community that have to bear that brunt. So we think the federal dollars will make a great opportunity for the private sector, who's been obviously doing this for a long time. But we know it's going to take a partnership, and we also fully realize that it's going to be a lot of new technologies that are coming out, the satellites that are getting launched, the point-to-point wireless systems, and this problem will be solved, but it's going to be solved by both technology and kind of changing the math, if you will, for what it costs to deploy.
Thank you.
And, yep, thanks.
This is Mike Butler with Palm Beach County. I just wanted to add that, one of the challenges that we see is not so much industry penetration into the areas within our county, but affordability. We're trying to service economically challenged populations that can't afford to go with a commercial provider. And the pandemic, obviously, with the students and the schools, kind of exacerbated that. So we're trying to address that with some projects to extend broadband into these communities where people and students can't afford broadband.
Katie, if I can, both our friends in telecom who are on the call here with AT&T and our industry, and in Palm Beach, I'm really glad it was you that brought it up. Our members for about a decade have offered $10 to $15 internet connection for families who qualify for free and reduced lunch, and that is an amazing program that that Floridians don't necessarily know about, and they get notified when they sign their kids up for the program, but they stop there and look at they don't realize these other programs that are available. But all of our members all across Florida have been doing that And they've also been further discounting that program and then working with some of the federal dollars to even cover the total cost. Because when you're not making a lot of money, $15 a month is still a lot of money. And so I know our members and our friends in telecom have been working on those programs. If you want more information about that, I can have Katie send out a link to everybody that will actually go to our page, and then you'll see the links for our members. But I know our friends in the telecom world also offer those types of programs.
I'll be glad to send that out, Brad. Anyone else? Any other comments? I really do want to hear from you guys.
I would just say, hey, this is Carla Roderick from Comcast. Just adding on to what Brad shared with our Internet Essentials program, which, as he alluded to, we've introduced broadband into millions of homes through the program. And I would just say a point to Palm Beach County. The school district actually partnered with us on an Internet Essentials partnership program that sponsored all qualifying, basically low-income students to have that covered by the school district through CARES monies. And the real issue was just getting them to take advantage of that opportunity. The adoption rate was really, really low, even when offered for free. So, there's a few different issues at play there, I think, as far as those programs go and getting folks access to broadband.
Understood. And I know that it's very, everything, it differs between sectors. So every sector has its own unique needs when it comes to internet access. And I understand that COVID has really impacted everyone differently. And more than anything, we talk about education and we talk about medicine and we talk about teleworking and we talk about all of those things, and that really was kind of where I was want to see what the industry has to say about how else we can make it more accessible. So it is so important, but I'm curious how else it has impacted. And it's not just the kids trying to do telework, homeschooling. It's hard. And so you have different avenues and just education alone. When you define accessibility, are we talking about just having access to the internet? Are we talking about having access to higher speeds in the internet? So for the internet, we can have multiple streaming at home and multiple people online all doing their work at exactly the same time? Or are we talking about accessibility and for those kids through devices and how they can, because they don't have the access in that respect? And it's interesting. I'm curious what other industries are feeling, including from education, if there's any other variables such as that. So it's not just I can't get to the internet, but what is it about that you can't get to, or that is making accessibility a challenge? Any thoughts on that?
One thing, this is Carla Roderick again from Comcast, and I don't want to sound like a Comcast commercial because I know my industry colleagues are on and can speak to it as well, but I think we've all kind of decided that it really takes a multi-pronged approach. So whereas getting and offering that high-speed, low-cost broadband access is one avenue, many of us are doing partnerships or sponsorship opportunities with community members, like I mentioned with the Palm Beach County School District. But then also, not to sound like a commercial, but you've seen our advertisements for our lift zones, and that's going into community centers and offering Wi-Fi for maybe those students that still, like you just mentioned, may not have the actual equipment, or maybe they have to go to before or after school. In addition to that, offering, affordable equipment as well. So I think it's there's not a silver bullet fix. It seems like this multi-pronged approach that many of us are taking action on seems to be the better resolve. And we're all still working on it. I know my colleagues that are all on the call here have similar examples of ways to try to get at the issue.
This is Mike Butler with Palm Beach County again. I would agree with that from a couple perspectives. There's, the communities that we're targeting with our project. Like Carla mentioned, Comcast is working with the school district. We are partnering as the county. We are partnering with the school district as well. But some of these populations that we are working into either are wary of working with corporate partners, or they've had challenges in the past that make it not feasible or not attractive for them to work with corporate partners. They trust the school district in our county with a relationship with their children. So, we're having to kind of fill in those gaps, as it were. So it's not necessarily always a technology penetration question or an opportunity with the technology subsidized programs. There's other factors that come into play with certain populations.
Okay. I think that's an interesting point. That's a very interesting point.
Hi, this is Ginger Peterson with Palm Beach State College, and I can offer a few perspectives from what we've heard from some of our students. So connectivity, with a lot of our classes being remote instruction, is definitely an issue for them. And it's not so much that they don't have broadband in their area, it's that they can't afford it. So our students don't have the free lunch option because they're adults, so they're not on a free lunch program with the school district. And other low-cost options sometimes are not open to them. Even if they wanted to pay, they can't add it because perhaps they have a poor credit history and they get blocked out of AT&T or Comcast because of that. So they can't add it for that reason if they happen to be a credit risk. So they get shut out that way. I think people too are a little bit wary about signing on the dotted line that it might be a limited time offer, and that all of a sudden in another month they're going to get this huge bill because their grace period ran out or something like that. So I think that's some of the things that we've heard from our students. I've suggested to a lot of students that they look into their existing cell phone provider and see if their phone is a viable option to use as a hotspot. It's sometimes not the best speed, but sometimes it's okay to use that so they don't have to buy another hotspot and another device if they have decent cell phone coverage where they live. So that could be another low-cost option for a student to get access and using their phone as a hotspot for a laptop. We've handed out probably about 3,000 laptops to our students, but that doesn't do any good if it doesn't have connectivity. It's pretty much a brick these days, unless you have that. So we've even encouraged our students to do the parking lot, that, come and sit in our parking lot in your car, and we'll beam the Wi-Fi down to you if you don't have access, but you feel safe staying in your car. So it's right, there's no silver bullet, but I think it has to be a safe and easy to install and no strings attached solution for a lot of our students. Our students are so fluid from month to month. They're here, they're not here. This term they're here, they're not here next term. So it's a very fluid population that even outside the pandemic, they need connectivity to be a successful college student in today's world. Bottom line.
Hey, Ginger, this is Ian Gottner with AT&T. To echo Carla's comments, I don't want to sound like an AT&T commercial, but I would encourage students to go check out the Access from AT&T program. It's not solely based on whether the student is receiving school lunch or a free lunch, national school lunch, or it's also determined by whether they are receiving SNAP benefits, and basically just looks into their income. And we also we don't require a deposit or a contract. There's no background, a credit check or any of that stuff. So that may be something that would help your students. And by the way, we've shared that information with the Palm Beach County School District as well, and the Education Foundation, and they're like the Comcast Essentials program. They are sharing that with their students and teachers.
Yeah, this is Brad. If I can dovetail on Ian's, there's also some pretty interesting programming that have happened specifically during COVID, where to the speaker's point about cost, even though it's a low cost, it's still a big one, where they're going as far as for during this COVID year, covering the cost for that student. And so I know universities and colleges, you know, if they're curious about that, I would encourage all of those institutions for the kids that are in college to reach out to your local, you know, provider, because, you know, if the school was willing to, you know, cover those kind of costs, that's another mechanism. You know, if the industry is going to subsidize 85% of it, if the school could pick up the other, you know, 15 hypothetically, that would be, those are some solutions that have been in play for, I know, K through 12 students. But those programs are out there, and I know our companies are working with school districts, and I'm sure they're working with colleges as well.
Anybody else? Thank you, Brad. Thank you all of you. And again, I'm glad that ISPs are here and the service providers are here so that we can hear from you. Is there anyone have any other comments? It looks like, from what I'm hearing, that the affordability piece is a huge factor. And this is just our first workshop, so in our first conversation, but it sounds like that's the biggest factor. Is there, I haven't seen the poll results yet. I don't remember what it said. But what are the other factors? Is there anything else that would help our office help your industry for the future, aside from affordability? Is there anything else that we could assist in?
Hey, Katie.
Yes.
This is Mike Merker with Martin County. We have, and I'm sure some of my peers share this challenge. We have large areas where it's not financially attractive for the ISPs to provide coverage. There's just not the density there to make it economically viable for them. And the challenge with meeting the needs of the people in those areas is that there are legislative disincentives at the state level for the county to be able to jump in and possibly provide services in those areas. And I speak specifically of Florida Statutes 350.81. And so I think that if there was a way to formalize some sort of public-private partnerships, because if it's not financially feasible for the ISPs and it's legislatively almost impossible for counties to provide those services, I think between us we ought to be able to find a way to share the cost and share the burden and get services to people that need it, that just can't get it right now.
Okay, I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you. And I think that's one that our office will be happy to look into. Sean, do you have a question?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to ask, beyond the things that have become very obvious for everyone during the pandemic, within the different sectors, whether it's healthcare or education or whatever it may be, are there any other challenges that have arisen that are unique or that were really unexpected that you'd like to share with our office, things that we need to consider when we're doing strategic planning? Thank you.
Really? Nothing?
We wish it was unique, but it's a challenge for everybody. So you're hearing most of them on this call from the cable industry's perspective.
So I have a question. I'm just looking here on the Internet Essentials from Comcast. And students can qualify if they're under a federal Pell Grant, but only in Colorado and Illinois. Why would that be? I mean, we have the.
Hey, this is Carla from Comcast. I don't know all the specific intricacies, but there's lots of other ways if you check it out and just dig into it a little bit. There's lots of other
I'm
ways
looking at all, I mean, Medicaid, really the one that would make a difference for higher ed would be the federal Pell Grant. The other ones, you're really talking about small numbers for us.
Well, I'll certainly carry that feedback back.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Katie, I just want to encourage everyone to look in the chat box, or I don't know if you want to read out some of these things, because people are providing information and links and stuff in the chat box. So I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that.
Thank you. That's a great call. We do have Marva Johnson, who has been providing some good information on a charter program called Stay Connected, and also suggesting the public housing organizations as partners. Thank you, Carla, for your continued comments on Comcast Options. I appreciate that very much. And I see that Marva also suggested some great partnership opportunities, which I know that we as our office will also look into as well to see how we can assist and promote some of those opportunities. Is there anything else that we can assist with, or we genuinely want to hear your thoughts, and this is a great opportunity to add those comments into our strategic planning. So if we've missed something today, please let me know. You're welcome to reach out to me. Go ahead.
This is Ian Cotner with AT&T again. It was mentioned earlier, but I would like to just drive home the point really quickly, and that is that it's important that we look at this in a technology neutral manner, and that we don't get bogged down in focusing too much on wired or wireless, but keep in mind that the solution can be a combination of technologies, whether it's wired or wireless, and a combination of.
I agree, Ian. Thank you so much for mentioning that, because some of the success stories that I have read about and chatted with other states about has been a multiple technology approach. And I think that's really important. So thank you for mentioning that. You're right that it probably isn't going to be just one technology. We can't lay fiber. I don't think anybody can lay fiber all over for every community, and that would be wonderful and ideal. But I think if that's our long range plan to ultimately one day get to, then maybe we have to have multiple technologies to get to that point in the meantime.
Agreed.
Is there anything else for today's workshop?
I've got
Hi,
one more.
it's Carla again. I was just wondering if you're going to share the slides following the meeting. I think that would be helpful.
Sure. I'll be happy to share this with you. No problem. All right. And Sean, you had something?
Yes, I was going to say, if you have any data or studies that were completed in your region that can help us inform what ends up in our strategic plan, if it's been anytime within the last 5 years, we would love to see that. So please share that information with us. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else today? Okay. Well, I want to say thank you so much to specifically our DEO leadership. I really appreciate their support and guidance in the establishment of our new office. I appreciate and thank you for the regional planning councils and the Florida Regional Councils Association for volunteering your services and coordination and activities for these workshops. I appreciate the council's facilitating everything, reaching out to our regional leaders and bringing together the technology piece of it. Thank you so much. I appreciate the Florida Association of Counties, the Small County Coalition, Florida Internet and Television, thank you. We appreciate your input today and the information you were able to provide. And thank you to our internet service providers for participating. You had some fantastic feedback and comments. It was invaluable, and I appreciate your time today. So thank you so much. Stephanie, is there anything else that we need to cover?
And everybody, this is Tom Lanahan at Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. I would encourage the folks who are on the call to talk to friends in your industries that we didn't have on the call today, and encourage them to get information into to Katie. And then if you know folks in other parts of the state, please ask them to be on the lookout for the invitations for the workshop for their part of the state, because we want to hear from everybody. So if you could help us get the word out, and there's so many emails today. I know some folks probably just didn't do this because it's like, oh, I don't even know what that is, and they move on. So encourage them to open it up and register when they get it from their local regional planning council.
Okay.
Thank you everybody for being here today.
Thank you so much, everyone. I genuinely appreciate your attention and your comments and your feedback. And we will look forward to chatting, hopefully again, in the very near future. Thanks so much.